Louis, welcome to the Sipping Point.
Hi, Laurie. Welcome. And thanks for receiving me today.
Thank you. And I wish I was over there in France with you. I have long been a fan of your wines, and I'm so excited to get into all of it and taste some of them here on the podcast today. But your family and the winery has been making wine since 1490, I believe, which is so many years and generations, I believe 18 generations. And I wonder, how do you balance all of the amazing history and really respecting that, but also being creative and putting in some of your own personality?
It's not a conflict at all. I mean, a tradition is something which remains when you have tried everything else. So people have been trying to improve their practices at all times. And sometimes there's a practice which looks better than what you used to be beforehand. So it's just the normal life of a domain like this, living on the long run, to use the know-how, but in the meantime, be creative and try to improve what is improvable.
I love that. And you're known, and your father actually started the organic winemaking back in the 70s, I believe, but you're known for what's called non-interventionist winemaking. So if people are listening and they don't really understand what that is, tell me a little bit, or tell us a little bit about what you do in the vineyard, in your winemaking practices, to let the grape really express itself and not do too much from a human perspective.
Simple. Just do nothing.
Your favorite thing.
No. It's an idea developed by my father. I mean, first of all, yes, my father was a pioneer with organic farming back in the 60s, 70s. When the pesticides arrived in the vineyard, he figured out, I mean, to make it short, he figured out that those products were killing the populations of birds. And he had a big passion for birds. And he decided this can't be a good practice. So this is how it began. And at the time he was working with a fantastic company called the Sama, and who were working already at this time on the ability of the soils to be alive and all those kind of things. So yes, it was being a pioneer in a time when the concept of organic farming didn't really exist yet. What was the second part of your question?
Just the whole idea of what actual things you do. Like, I know you don't do any fining or filtering.
Non-interventionism. It's the result of decades of research. And my father and I ended up thinking that the best in winemaking is to do as few as possible. Yes, you still need to do a lot of things, but no entrance except SO2. And SO2 is going to be used in minimal homeopathic quantities. A part of that, nothing. And the rest is about anticipation. Anticipate the potential problems. For example, we have sorting tables, and in Saint Cosme, every single bunch is sorted out by hand. Because if you do that, you sort out by anticipation 90% of the potential problems. So this is what is about non-interventionism. It's not actually more work than being an interventionist. But at the end of the day, the idea is say, do not bother the vineyard, do not bother a grape, do not pollute the natural work of the indigenous yeast, etc. Do not filter, do not fine. And this is how you generate purity in the wines, I suppose.
And in 2010, I saw that you moved towards biodynamic farming. And how does that play into your whole non-interventionist theory?
It's okay. One, I am not certified biodynamic because there are some practices in the biodynamic that I don't like, but I like most of them. So I use most of them, but I am not certified. I wanted to make it clear. Biodynamic has very few to do with this non-intervention philosophy. It's two different aspects of the job.
Okay. So you took the best of what you wanted from that and and use it, but you
But
have freedom outside of some
yeah,
of those things as
for
well.
example, if you prune relatively to the moon, that's a biodynamic idea, but it has nothing to do with intervention or not, because you have to prune anyway.
Mm.
You see what I mean?
I do. Well, I know the Rhone, when we think of the Rhone Valley, a lot of us, red wine comes to mind, but there is great white wine being made there, and often it gets overlooked. So I'm really was excited when you included one of the white wines that you make. Tell me the correct way to pronounce this, and tell me a little bit about this wine.
Yeah, this is Saint Cosme Les Deux Albions. This is a plantation that I did 12 years ago on the most limestoney place in the Southern Rhône. Uh, yeah, there is a very good potential to make good whites in the Southern Rhône for two reasons. One, the practices have been improving dramatically in the last 15, 20 years. I mean, back in the 80s, very few people were making good whites in the Rhône. Now, the general level in winemaking has been improving a lot. Secondly, we have a wide choice of grapes indigenous to the Rhône Valley. I can name Viognier, Marsanne, Roussanne, Grenache Blanc, Picpoul, Uni-Blanc, Bourboulenc, Clairette. That's a lot. And then it's a good space for the winemaker's creativity. One. Second, we have all those acidic grapes like Picpoul, Uni-Blanc, Clairette, Bourboulenc. They are a bit like the Greek Assyrtiko. They have this natural acidity freshness, which is crucial in a Mediterranean climate. So we can make wines which are just under 13 alcohol, and they are still ripe grapes. So yeah, we have all these resources that allow us to make very good white wines.
And it's very unique. We have a floral, I feel like some stone fruit there, a really nice dry white with some nice acidity on the finish. But there is a little bit of a oak aging here. What is the purpose? I don't see a lot of the influence on the aroma or the taste, but what do you feel that adds to the wine?
Approximately 50% of this wine has been fermented in old barrels, and 50% of it has been totally made in stained steel vats. Yeah, I think we need both. The process I go for in the two protocols are very different, and those wines are blended afterwards. I think
Mhm.
the work in small cask brings a breathing which is very interesting for many grapes. And the work on the lees you can do in a barrel, you can't do it in a vat. So it's not that one is better than the other, is that some winemaking choices brings you to barrel, and some other choices for other grapes brings you to vat.
And do you think this has a really beautiful golden color to it? A little more than you see on a lot of other white wines out there. What do you attest the color to? Is it the grapes themselves and the quality of that? Or does it have to do with the 50-50 oak fermentation that you mentioned here?
Both. I mean, grapes like Marsanne and Viognier develop a little bit of color, and obviously a work in barrel as well. So we will, with the proportion of Marsanne and Viognier we will never get a very green color.
Okay, gotcha. And this wine, as well as the reds we're going to taste here in a bit, both and all of them have this freshness to them, yet you're in such a warm area of France. It's a very warm climate there in the south of France. What do you attest the freshness to with these wines? Is it the microclimate? Is it the way you make the wine? Or is there just something special on these vineyards that you're choosing and growing your grapes on?
Many different reasons. Limestone brings significant freshness. We are in a relatively cold microclimate. We are very cautious with when we pick those grapes. I do not want to make a 14.5 alcohol white wine With
Hmm.
me, it's going to be at the most 13.3 and most of the time under 13. Yeah. But the most important reason is that I have planted in this vineyard 40% of acidic grapes. So in what you taste, 40% of what you taste is Picpoul, Uni Blanc, Bourboulingue, Claret. So
Hmm.
when you get those grapes, you have a management of freshness, which suddenly becomes so easy. Yeah,
It's really delicious.
I think it's a key point in hot climates.
And if you were, I'm assuming if you love wine, you love food as well. I don't know. They seem to go together in my mind. And so what is your favorite dish or snack that you like to enjoy with this white? It's so interesting just on its own. Italians call it meditation wine, just sit
Yeah,
with your wine and think, but it's also great to have it with food because to me, wine is really more than any other beverage linked to food. What would you love to have with this on a typical Wednesday night?
100% asparagus. Yeah, and scallops, shrimps.
Mm,
Yeah.
delicious. And
Mm.
asparagus is a tough thing to pair with because not all wines can really handle asparagus. So it's nice to have another option other than Sauvignon Blanc and Gruner Veltliner. So now I have this Rhone White in
Yeah,
my back pocket.
yeah, but don't cook the asparagus too much because then it doesn't work.
Okay, yes, and
You
and
want
it doesn't taste good either.
you really want them crunchy.
Okay. Love that idea. Okay. So every year you produce an annual booklet of the vintage, and I'm holding the one for 2026. It's about the 2024 vintage, of course. And it's a combination of your artwork, your thoughts, information on the wine, and it's beautiful. Most of the pieces of art are yours, but I noticed there are a few other family members that have some artwork. Alex
Yeah.
is in there and some other artists that you include, and it's just really fun. It's kind of like that catalog you hope to get in the mail and you get excited when you get it. Tell me about how this started, and obviously you're so talented on the art front. Do you think wine and art go together? Is wine your inspiration? How does this all work?
Yeah, I really love writing. My grandfather was an historian, writer, and it's in the family. So writing is something I deeply like, and I began that a long time ago. And my initial page became 4 and then 8 and 12, and it never stopped growing. And until I thought, okay, it would be nice if you take the time to make this booklet, 48 pages every year, and people can keep it. And there is stories, there is more than just technical informations about wines that you see everywhere to entertain people and bring them maybe a little bit of general knowledge about wine. So that's the whole idea of this. And as I love to paint, I'm just a small amateur, but I find it super relaxing to paint. I include those artworks that I do sometimes, and I invite my daughter who paints well and friends artists to participate. I mean, it's a lot of work, but it's great fun, and it will remain. And I think it's really part of the wine idea, because I think people like when they taste wine, they like to taste the place it comes from. They like to taste the history which is behind. They like to know about the people who make it. I mean, it's part of the enjoyment of wine, but we have to give the material for that. So yeah, and sometimes we can even be a little political to defend what has to be defended.
I love that. And we're going to get to some of that politics in a little bit, but this is gorgeous. I love this is in the middle of the booklet. And even if you're at home and you don't have the booklet in hand, if you go to the Chateau Saint Cosme website, and I will link that on my show notes, you can download the digital version as well. And it's right there on the homepage. It was very easy to find. And I just think it's so beautiful. Do you ever taste one of your wines and does that inspire what you might draw next, or do you take the paintings you have and match them to your wines?
Both. It can go both ways. It depends. But I always want a connection between the wine and the artwork. Yeah. And to answer to your question about being arty or what, I think it's just since the Industrial Revolution in the 19th century that people have been separating art and science because production became an industry and not an artisanal thing anymore. People disconnected the two things. But until the beginning of the 19th century, both disciplines were very well linked all the time. For example, Leonardo da Vinci was the greatest artist, but it was the greatest scientist as well. There is no opposition between the two things, and especially in my job, where you really want to produce something which is a beauty, something which has an aesthetics, something which has balance. Beauty has to be everywhere in wine. But in the meantime, to achieve that, you need to support your work by a very, very good knowledge of biology, science, physics, viticulture, agronomy, everything. And I am disappointed when a grower who has a sense of art miss a wine because his technical knowledge was not good enough. This is sad. And I am sad when a wine is totally industrial, super technical, and there is no idea, no search of beauty. Both are not a good success. And my approach of it is you really need to mix. And I have a passion in art, but I have a passion in science. I mean, science is just fantastic. I mean, watch how an insect work on a flower with pollination is just fascinating.
Absolutely. I like that you said that because we've had some discussions on the show before about is wine an art or is it a science? But you're saying in order to do it really well, it has to be both. And that makes a lot of sense to me. All right. So this was the very first wine of yours that I ever tried, the Saint Cosme Côte du Rhône. And we can find it here in the US just under $20, which is kind of the sweet spot for a lot of people and looking for great value wine. And I know this is a little bit of a different model. It's not an estate wine, it's more of a negociant model where you work with small growers and then craft the wine from that. So I'm going to taste this in a second, but I'm just curious, how do you work with many different growers, but still make sure that the wine has the Saint Cosme personality and authenticity?
It is my job to monitor that. I began to make this wine in 1997, so it will be next year 30 years of this Côte du Rhône, which is a pure Syrah, which is quite unusual, but it's what it is. No, it's, with the growers I work with, the most important is quality of the relationship and mutual confidence. When you have that, you can work well and work well as a good team is my goal. So yeah, I have created this group of growers to design this wine every year, and I am a kind of an orchestra conductor, and my job is to make everyone do the right things, to try to reproduce the same style,
Mhm.
but every vintage is still different. So yeah.
Yes. And that's a great point. In the booklet, when I read one of the sections, you were talking about how you love the idea of vintage differentiation. One year is not going to be the same as the next, just like life. Each year has its own challenges and upsides. And so I think a lot of consumers, don't necessarily understand that and they kind of want the wine to always taste the same, but that's just not how wine works, correct?
And I think it's, if it tastes the same all the time, it's kind of boring. Just my opinion, but yeah, it's magical that nature design a different wine every year. I find it totally magical. And even if some vintages look alike, they are not, they are never exactly the same.
Hmm.
And why cancel this magical aspect of our job?
Right. And I believe also the discussion was around some vintages you have to wait for. And this idea of patience that as the wine evolves in the bottle and we let it age, and obviously not all wines are meant for long-term aging, but it does change. Do you feel like in our fast social media-based economy now that everybody is too impatient and just want to drink the wine right away? And what do we miss in doing that?
It's a difficult one. I mean, I think every terroir has a different DNA. And for example, my terroir here in Gigondas, which is my main job, a Gigondas from Saint Cosme, before 10 years, you don't open the bottles. After 10 years, your enjoyment is going to be multiplied per 4 or 5. This is how it works. I can't help it. It's been like that forever. It has nothing to do with the way we make the wine. This is the DNA of this terroir. So as a grower, I can't go against the nature of a terroir. I want to help the place, the terroir, to express at its best. And unfortunately, in many cases in the category of the greatest wines, it requires patience. I mean, you can't drink a great Bordeaux too young. You can't drink a great Von Romané after 2 years. It doesn't work. So, but everything is like that. The movies have become a lot quicker. The videos are now 25 seconds. Everything has to be quick. I don't know. There is a pleasure and there is a fun and there is a joy in slow things.
Hmm.
I mean, you can enjoy things when they are slow. And yeah, I don't have an answer because for sure people who live in cities, they don't have cellars and they can't keep. It's not easy, but I will never change my winemaking to make the wine approachable in the first 2 years. I will never do that. For that, I make Côtes du Rhône, I make whites, I make microcosm. I make wines which are supposed to be drunk young, but for Gigondas and Côte Rôtie, for me, it's difficult.
And I love that in the book, because I was just smelling this Côte du Rhône again, that you give us, instead of a very flowery 3-paragraph description of what we should smell and taste in the wine, you just give us some notes. So blackcurrant, licorice, black pepper. And I found that helpful and simplified because, I think consumers get intimidated when we start to get too crazy describing the wine and then they feel, less than if they're not getting all of those smells and tastes. But definitely with this Cote de Rhone, and I think it's the Syrah influence, obviously, with that 100%, the black pepper right away. I was like, oh my gosh, that is definitely there. The sort of violet, the black fruit. Is that how you think, like sort of 3 or 4 descriptors for each wine? How did you come up with that way of giving us your notes, I guess?
I deeply think that what is important is what the consumer thinks, not what I think. And my goal is to give confidence to people to rely on themselves, to understand their own enjoyment. So this is why I want to be short and simple. Just give a rough direction. Take the hand and then people make their own opinion.
And the choice of doing, and I know you've done this for years, obviously the 100% Syrah, lots of Côte de Rhone are typically blended with several of the grapes of the Rhone. So what made you want to do only Syrah?
At the time when I began to make this wine back in 1997, I was making just Gigondas and it was a lot of Grenache. So I wanted to explore a pure Syrah wine. And secondly, I wanted to make a Côte du Rhône, which would have a great, beautiful fruit and plenty of freshness. With these goals, I thought Syrah was ticking more boxes than Grenache. So
Nice.
that's the explanation.
Perfect. Well, speaking of Grenache, the last of the wines here that I wanted to talk to you about is your Gigondas. I have the 2023 just for reference on vintage. And often for many years, Gigondas was sort of overshadowed by Châteauneuf-du-Pape being sort of the king of the Southern Rhône. But now there's so many wine people, wine lovers, sommeliers who are fans of Gigondas, and it's become more and more popular, at least here in the United States. Tell me a little bit about why you like making Gigondas and what people can expect from yours.
Well, it's very important to understand that Gigondas and Châteauneuf are distant just by 15 k's. So it's very close, but they are two very different climates. They are at very different altitudes. Their exposure to sun is different, and their soil have nothing to do. So what they have in common is just the grape, the Grenache. But apart of that, they have nothing in common. We have more in common in Gigondas with Burgundy than Châteauneuf-du-Pape. I mean, even geologically speaking. So you're going to always find a Châteauneuf softer with rounder tannins and a lighter color. In Gigondas, you're going to always get the quality of tannins that is given by limestone. You're always going to find this altitude feeling, which brings this freshness, which is kind of unusual with Grenache. So in the end, you will always have a profile of Grenache in a Gigondas, which will be very, very different from Châteauneuf at all levels. But the
Mhm.
ability to age of the wines here in Gigondas is absolutely exceptional. Yeah, I've had experiences of super old wines. The tastings were quite impressive.
And one of your notes for this was blackberry. And the minute I put my nose in there, I feel like that aroma was so pure and so intense. And it is so velvety on the palate. I think it tastes delicious right now, but I know you're saying that 7 more years, so that would be 10 years from this vintage, that is the best time to start drinking the Gigondas. What will it be like in 7 years from now?
It's gonna be rounder. The tannins will be more gentle, I am tempted to say. The aromatics are gonna be a lot more complex because the fruit tends to disappear and the terroir tend to express itself a lot more. So you're going to find a wider variety of aromas, and in the mouth, you're going to find this softness that you have in the old wines, and even and for example, the way you feel the alcohol is going to be a lot more gentle as well. Everything is
Mhm.
going to be a lot more integrated, and it goes a lot better with food as well. I find young Grenache, whatever they come from Gigondas or Châteauneuf, not always easy to pair with food, while I think a great old Grenache from our region, especially Gigondas, is a fantastic field to enjoy food and wine pairing.
Anything that's specific to your area that you love with this wine?
Yeah, the king of the wine and food pairing in our region is an old Gigondas with the lamb leg cooked for 7 hours at 90 degrees Celsius. Low
Okay.
temperature, long cooking, low temperature. This is the ultimate pairing.
Okay. I'm going to have to get that on my list to try. Just for reference, this in the US will retail at around 68 and the white that we tried in the beginning around $27 with the Côte du Rhône being just under 20. So if folks, I will put links to these so you can try to find them wherever you are. And all right, so I thought for my last question, sort of a two-parter, but that I know you had some thoughts in your booklet this year about the state of the wine industry and some of maybe the people that are working against us. So I thought we'd start with, what are you concerned about? I know everybody's talking a lot of doom and gloom about the wine industry. I'm still high on it and positive, but what things do concern you about the wine industry and the market for wine right now? And then let's finish for like what you see as the biggest hope going forward.
I am concerned about the evolution of food, not everywhere and not for everyone, because in the biggest cities in the US, you have fantastic restaurants and many people wants to eat well, etc. But for some other people, maybe, and it's the same in Europe. I mean, the way the food culture goes doesn't make me feel a lot of confidence, doesn't always reassure me.
Hmm.
And the food culture being heavily related to the wine consumption, yeah, I would like the good food, the great products being more promoted everywhere. That's a concern. And as I wrote about it in the booklet, yeah, I find the rise of the consumption of drugs. I find it very concerning, both in the US and in Europe. In France, it's a big thing. I think it's for the young generation. It takes them away from wine in certain cases, and I think this is quite sad. And I think we need to work on this. Yeah.
Yeah. And I think, wine is a team sport. Wine is to be shared, and it's about connection for me. And so that is, I think, one of the things, at least in the US, that more and more people are spending time alone and not getting together and not doing things. And you're never going to be lonely at a wine bar. I don't know. So I agree with that part. So what do you see as the biggest hope going forward for wine?
The biggest hope is that wine is eternal. Wine has been made for thousands of years, will be with us for forever. And this is the only product that allows you to really taste the earth in its biggest complexity. And that is totally magical, and such a magical cannot disappear. And I think even if you, as a human being, have been away from wine, there will be one day when you cross a wine and you develop this friendship with it. And this makes me super optimistic about the future, because I think it's part of what people need. It's a good excuse for people to get together, to have a link, a relation, something nice between people, and on a sociologic level, it's it's a quite important thing, and that brings me plenty of hope for the future.
I love that. All right. You're so eloquent. I really appreciate you sharing these three delicious wines with me, joining me here on the show. And I just want to thank you so much for coming and just say cheers.
Thank you, Laurie. It was very, very enjoyable to have this nice discussion with you. I enjoyed your questions. It was very good. Thank you very much.
All right. Thank you.